The Mediterranean was quiet just before dawn, the kind of quiet that often comes before history shifts. Somewhere off the northern coast of Lebanon, an Israeli naval vessel was tracking a target. Intelligence had been building for days, signals, surveillance, and movement patterns pointing to a single figure believed to be orchestrating militant activity far from the front lines of the war in Gaza Strip. Then, in a sudden flash of precision and power, a strike cut through the darkness. Within hours, the announcement came from the Israel Defense Forces, better known as the IDF. The military said it had eliminated a Hamas commander in a naval strike in northern Lebanon, deep inside territory rarely touched during this conflict. The man they say was killed, Wasim Attallah Ali. According to Israeli officials, Ali was not a frontline fighter, but a key figure behind the scenes. He served as a commander within the military wing of Hamas and was responsible for training and exercises for the group's operatives operating in Lebanon. In other words, investigators believe he helped prepare militants for attacks, turning recruits into trained operatives capable of striking Israeli targets. But the location of the strike is what has captured the world's attention. The attack reportedly took place in the Badawi Palestinian refugee camp near the coastal city of Tripoli, hundreds of kilometers from Gaza and far from the intense battlefields that have defined the war between Israel and Hamas. And that raises a chilling question. How did a Gaza-based militant organization end up operating from northern Lebanon? To understand that, we have to step back and look at the wider chessboard of the Middle East. For decades, Lebanon has been a complex landscape of alliances, militias, and political factions. Among them is Hezbollah, the powerful Iranian-backed militant group that dominates much of southern Lebanon and has fought multiple wars with Israel. But Hezbollah isn't the only armed group in the country. Lebanon is also home to large Palestinian refugee populations, many living in camps that have historically operated with limited oversight from the Lebanese state. Within these camps, various Palestinian factions, including Hamas, have maintained networks and logistical operations. In recent years, Israeli intelligence has increasingly warned that Hamas was expanding its presence in Lebanon, training facilities, recruitment networks, weapons pipelines. The allegation from Israel is that figures like Wasim Attallah Ali were central to that effort, organizing drills, preparing fighters, and helping coordinate attacks that could threaten Israeli civilians and soldiers. If true, the strike wasn't just about one man. It was about dismantling an entire infrastructure forming far from Gaza, and the method used is just as significant. Unlike many Israeli operations that rely on fighter jets or drones, this strike was carried out by the Israeli Navy. Missile ships operating off the Lebanese coast have increasingly played a role in Israel's military operations, capable of launching precision strikes while simultaneously monitoring aerial threats and coastal activity. It marks another example of how this conflict has spread across multiple arenas: land, air, sea, and even cyberspace. And this is far from the first time Israel has targeted Hamas leadership beyond Gaza. Over the years, Israeli intelligence agencies have pursued senior militant figures across the region, often through covert or highly targeted operations. One notable case occurred in Beirut when a strike killed senior Hamas leader Saleh al-Aruri, a key strategist believed to have coordinated attacks against Israel. Those operations are designed with a specific strategy in mind: remove commanders, disrupt planning, and create uncertainty inside militant organizations. But every such strike carries risk. Lebanon's political and military environment is volatile. Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have been simmering for years, and cross-border exchanges of fire have become increasingly frequent. In fact, even as this latest strike was unfolding, clashes were already occurring along the Israel-Lebanon frontier. Israeli soldiers have reportedly been wounded in fighting with Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon, highlighting how close the region is to a wider escalation. And that's the central fear haunting diplomats and military planners alike. A single targeted strike can ripple outward, because in the Middle East, conflicts rarely stay contained. Lebanon itself is already under enormous strain, politically fragile, economically devastated, and home to millions of refugees displaced by other wars in the region. The presence of armed groups and regional proxy conflicts has turned the country into one of the most sensitive geopolitical flashpoints in the world. Now, with Hamas operatives reportedly active there and Israeli forces willing to strike deep into Lebanese territory, the risk of escalation has grown significantly. For Israel, the calculation is clear. Officials say they will pursue militant leaders wherever they operate if they believe attacks are being planned against Israeli citizens. For Hamas and its allies, those strikes are seen as acts of aggression that justify retaliation. And caught in between are civilians, people living in refugee camps, border towns, and cities that have become part of a shadow war stretching across the region. The killing of Wasim Attallah Ali may seem like a single event, but in reality, it is one piece of a much larger story, a story of intelligence operations, regional alliances, and a conflict that refuses to stay within borders. Because what happened in the early hours off the coast of Lebanon was more than a strike, it was a reminder. In the modern Middle East battlefield, distance offers no protection. And as long as the networks of militant groups extend beyond Gaza, Israel's reach appears ready to follow them, across seas, across borders, and into the heart of one of the region's most fragile states. For now, the Mediterranean has returned to silence. But in a region shaped by decades of conflict, silence rarely lasts long.